And that video there actually looks a little bit more kind of what I saw, but I only saw about 10 of them.
Were they going
But
that fast? Jaron, how fast were they going?
no, not at all. If that's supposed to be real time, no.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I don't know which of these videos is real time, which of them is sped up, which one of them is. But they all look so different. I mean, and again, I was just trying to do some research, looking up why they say planets don't blink and why stars don't blink, and it just is ridiculous, asinine information that makes no sense. They still have to come through the atmosphere. They explain the way the atmosphere works, and the light coming from the stars is bounced and refracted, and that's why they twinkle. And then when it asks, well, why don't planets do the same thing, then the answer is just ridiculous. Here I'm reading a site that says planets do not twinkle like stars because the distance between the planets and the Earth is not far when compared to the distance between the stars and the Earth. As the distance is less, the refraction of light won't be much for planets, thus planets do not twinkle. But that makes no sense because the beginning of the article is describing why do stars twinkle. It says as the ray of light travels from one medium to another, it bends. This is called refraction. And it's talking about the light traveling through the atmosphere. So what would be different about starlight versus planet light? Doesn't make any sense.
That's a great question. And as we know, Jaron, we've talked about how a lot of these observatories they're creating artificial stars, right? They're supposedly firing these lasers up from the observatory, and they are hitting, I believe, what they call the sodium layer, and they are concentrating a beam onto the sodium layer. And what it does is, after prolonged exposure from this laser beam, it creates an artificial star of a specific magnitude. Well, because they know what that magnitude will be, however they know it, they are then able to modulate the mirrors on these large telescopes so that they can take out the atmospheric distortions based on this technology. Now, this isn't me speaking, this is what, the mainstream is saying. And again, if they're doing that based on something that is, only up at the sodium layer, whatever that is, right? Then why wouldn't the planets have the same exact twinkling effect? I am with you 100%.
Yeah,
And obviously, yeah, it's crazy.
I'm trying to read this article, and it's just the typical thing. And if you asked a Glober, of course, they would just direct you to some site like this and see it makes perfect sense. But if you actually read into it, it doesn't. It says, how are refraction and twinkling connected? It says the atmosphere of Earth is made of different layers. It's affected by winds, varying temperatures, and different densities as well. When light from a distant source, a star, passes through our turbulent atmosphere, it undergoes refraction many times. When we finally perceive this light from a star, it appears to be twinkling. This is because some of the light rays reach us directly and some bends away from us, some towards us. It happens so fast that this causes the twinkling effect. It says if you are in a largely empty field, such as the horizon is visible to you, you'll notice that stars in this region appear to twinkle a lot more than stars right overhead. Okay, I've seen that. That's because, as we know, that's the whole personal atmospheric dome. Why do you think this happens? It says, why do stars twinkle more when viewed from such places? It's because there are more layers of atmosphere between you and the star in this direction, therefore, more series of refractions. Then the very next paragraph starts out, why don't planets twinkle? And then it says, planets don't twinkle because the distance between the planets and the Earth is not far enough when compared to the distance between the stars and the Earth. But the light
That's absurd.
The damn atmosphere. It doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
And what they would direct you to, and this is, it's the same kind of, I don't know, when I get people talking about how a rainbow happens, or it's always these kind of answers that just don't make any sense. To a normal person, they can just read that and say, okay, that makes sense. The stars are further. That's why they twinkle. What are you talking about? What difference would that make if the twinkling is caused by the atmosphere?